My name is Lyudmyla Kozlvska. I represent Open Dialogue Foundation Human Rights Group. I also represent Building True Change Coalition, basically activists from all over the world and Bitcoiners who advocate in EU in front of regulators why we use Bitcoin for human rights, social goods, humanitarian aid. And for us, peer-to-peer transaction is something key, actually, because this is the only instrument we can use in authoritarian states. And the question which we are going to discuss, and I want you to be active, actually, not just listening, but just actually participate in this discussion. Regulation are not solution. Many of you know about it, but how we can address actually upcoming regulation and especially statement of G7 countries which assume, unfortunately, crypto assets as a threat to financial integrity and security. And they specifically focus in the communique from the May of this year that peer-to-peer transaction actually also represents specific actually threat to financial security and integrity. And I have with us representatives of, first of all, I would like to introduce you Mauro del Barba, Italian senator, who helping us to explain to other also colleagues in front of 57 member states of Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, why we, the activists, using Bitcoin and stablecoins, why we subjected to actually abusive anti-money laundering and counterterrorism mechanism by dictators, how they prosecute us. So he helped us to make our voice heard. So please be open here to discuss this issue, how you can give us as much as possible arguments to present it in different in front of different regulators and parliamentarians. And also, I have with me Julian Liniger, who is representing Rely, which is application and one of actually instruments which we as end user carry on. So what would happen if, for example, regulators take decision and say, okay, we ban all self-host wallets to be uploaded from Apple and Google. How are we going to find this kind of application? How are we going to address it? So this is a framework we are going to discuss. But first, I want to give the floor to Senator Del Barba and ask him, could you please tell us how we can actually explain the value of this kind of communique of G7 countries, that they possess and look at crypto assets as a threat for financial security integrity? Do we should care about it? How it actually can impact our real life? Mauro.
So, thank you. First of all, I would like to say I'm not a Bitcoin fanatic. I'm a freedom of people fanatic, okay? So that is the reason because I'm here. And I'm worried about the statement that could mean that in the future all government could control our payment. So I totally disagree this option. But to say that we disagree is not enough. Is not completely enough. We have to understand which is the reason, because our government that are liberal government, our democracy that are real democracy, are thinking about this situation. So, first of all, you already underlined that the anti-money laundering law at the moment is very critical for activists, for political activists. We have seen a lot of examples all around the world. And you have to know that politicians, members of parliament of your country, don't know this situation. So, first of all, we have to explain to member of parliament, all member of parliament generally want the interest of people. Okay, if we consider that member of parliament are slave or a bank or something similar, we don't find the solution of this trouble. So The problem is that in so complicated situation, we must explain exactly what happened, because at the moment these rules was made by technical institution and approved by Parliament by general principle, okay? But the problem is not in the general principle. The problem is in the operational way that the rules are made, okay? So first of all, talk with our colleague, not only me, everybody, because I am alone. I can talk with colleagues in every 57 countries of OSCE. I belong to this organization of countries. I can talk, and I'm talking with my colleague in Italian Parliament, but politicians and politics need the voice of people, okay, first of all. On the second consideration, probably our government, the G7 statement, wanted to underline real trouble, okay? Because we can actually be scared about some implication of using of cryptocurrencies. We don't have to avoid, we don't have to, we must show this implication, because if we look the solution in the interest of people, I think there is a solution that balance the scope for security and financial stabilization and the scope for freedom of the people. There is the solution, okay? So don't transform these opportunities in a war of a few citizens that understand the situation against the other citizen and against the institution. This is my first suggestion for this community, because even me, I have to learn more about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrency. Even me, I have many doubts in how we can share these opportunities. And I have also many beliefs, okay? Because first of all, I think that nobody, no government, no liberal government must, no liberal government can impose a non-anonymous transaction. We need anonymous transaction for our freedom, okay? This is a milestone. This is a milestone, okay? But we need to understand the reason that underline that statement. So maybe for the moment, I can stop here.
Yeah. Thank you. And I will give the floor actually to Julian and ask how you can convince like 3-5 your arguments, regulators, if you meet like person like Senator Barba or maybe others. What are your arguments? Why we need to have peer-to-peer transactions? Why it doesn't possess any risk for financial or integrity stability? And think, please, all of you, because I want you to brainstorm and give me the just, please, don't repeat, listen carefully what Julian said, and then invent your arguments, what we can use, because this discussion is recorded. So afterwards, we can use it as a submission for regulators. So, please.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so it's a great question. It's very important, I think. First of all, it's, I think, mostly, not all, but mostly about education. of the politicians. I've been invited, for example, to talk to around 15, like a parliamentary working group that is organized by Samuel Kuhlmann, who's probably here in the room. He's a politician here in Switzerland, and so I had the chance there to present and to talk to, like in a forum of this, very intimately about Bitcoin and about all the myths and questions and, you know, prejudice these people have. And I feel like there is a percentage of politicians, that you also said, that are against it for a reason, because they have an agenda. Like, they understood the topic, but they have an agenda. They want to preserve the power. They want, you know, to increase KYC, AML, and everything, just to, you know, CBDCs and stuff like that, just control every money flow, because this means power to them that they don't want to lose. But most of the politicians, I think, still are in good faith, and they are liberal. But they didn't understand the major principles of Bitcoin, and that's where they attack. So, for example, they don't understand that it's really decentralized, that it's an open source, neutral, global technology like the internet that everyone can use, and that is doing much less harm than good. Then they don't understand the whole energy and proof of work and mining problem, that it is, you know, yes, it does require energy to run the system, but it's actually very beneficial, and it's actually taking less energy than the old world system, and actually the energy it requires is very sustainable. But because they don't understand these problems, that's their attack vectors, right? And one of them is this whole privacy thing. They think it's a total like dark net of transactions. It's mainly used by terrorists and money launderers and tax evasions, etc. So all the criminals are using Bitcoin. That's why they think it's a good idea to ban peer-to-peer transactions, for example. And I think we just need to invest a lot of time and money and like lobbying power to make them understand that this is not an issue, that actually Bitcoin used the right way and treated the right way by governments and legislators and parliaments is actually also to the benefits of them, because it is a transparent network that, you know, with chain analysis and stuff can even help them to, you know, find criminal activities and terrorists, etc. We don't require their old systems of the whole, that the supervisionary systems, the KYC, AML stuff that is very limiting. We don't need that anymore because it is an open, transparent system. And so I think its number one priority should be the education, and also really talking to them and find out where the pain points are for them to understand, and what their problems are, because these initiatives of let's ban proof of work, let's ban peer-to-peer, let's ban this whole thing, there is a reason, and we need to find out where this reason comes from, what is making them initiate such thoughts, and then we need to educate them. And once they understood, I think we need to make sure that they see and feel the sense of urgency of a free society, that a free society needs also free money that is open to all and controlled by no one.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I want to go to you guys in the room and ask those, are there any crypto services providers, and what challenges you have with anti-money laundering regulation? For example, you know that some of your clients are basically affected with propaganda or, you know, like basically abuse of artificial intelligence, and you have to de-risk this person. If you have experience like this or other concerns, can you also like shortly introduce yourself and like within 2 minutes max to describe your issue, if anyone want to say it, because this is something what we also will use as an argument why actually civil society and just ordinary people, we need to have peer-to-peer transactions, and they are not at all any kind of threat for integrity or financial security. If anyone in the room. Yeah, okay. Maybe let's start with you and then with you. Remember to introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jonathan. We're practicing in this space, and if I may,
I think it doesn't work.
Turned off? No, it's turned on.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I've been looking at the title for the past 5 minutes or so, and I have a question, if I may.
Of course.
By saying that regulations are not solutions, are we also saying that laws are not solutions?
We say that we saw a lot of examples when regulation were not solutions, but actually caused for us huge problem. For example, because we live in a world where most of authoritarian states, unfortunately, using financial institutions as a weapon against their citizens and actually activists. And for example, I myself, as an activist, was under attack and my banking data were weaponized. So law was used as a weapon against me and people associated with my organization and others. And this is the reason why I'm saying it's not a solution and we need solution. It's not like we say it shouldn't be law or it just doesn't work properly.
But there's a contradiction in the title because human rights, at least in Europe, are enshrined through legislation, through the European Convention of Human Rights. Without the European Convention of Human Rights, we wouldn't have human rights in Europe, at least no resort that we can have in front of a court of justice to be able to protect our human rights. So it might sound like, like a theoretical argument, but I just wanted to make this distinction because in my mind, at least, the abuse is coming from regulations rather than from legislation itself. Regulations at times are enacted by private institutions, often unelected institutions, like in the case of the FATF, whereas legislation, again, in my opinion, is the fabric of modern society, or at least society as far back as the Roman Empire when Justinian worked on the Roman code of laws. Now, going to the point which was raised by Julian about educating politicians, that's a bit like flogging a dead horse at this stage, because, I mean, I for one, have been, I would say, at the forefront of legislative efforts in Malta in order to try and advocate and push forward Bitcoin and inevitably crypto as well. So in order to sort of, try and control the damage of overregulation, I said, listen, these are the benefits of Bitcoin, and there's also crypto as well, so I'll use that term as well. And in order to convince someone of the benefits, you either have to tell them what they stand to gain or what they stand to lose. Now, normally you build conviction when you realize what you stand to lose. Because normally, to gain something, you're simply moving from potentially a good position to a better position. Whereas if you stand to lose something, that's where conviction comes in, because you don't want to be in a worse position. Now, if we focus on human rights, then that's potentially I would say, the vector that makes sense to approach politicians with. Why are human rights important? Well, that's something that they can understand. Why is financial freedom important? That's something that they might not potentially understand. Because politicians in most advanced countries, and this may be a generalizing statement, but they tend to be already in a good position in society, mostly from an economic perspective. So if you try to convince them about financial freedom, they might not care much, because again, you're not showing them something that they stand to lose. Whereas, if we focus on privacy, for instance, well, politicians have been removed from politics when their privacy was breached, when showing a scandal that has taken place. So if we find those vectors where we can say, okay, there's a common element in place, and we can say, that's where we can make a connection, that's how we can convince politicians of why Bitcoin is important and needed in society. But if we try to tell them, because it's, like it gives us economic freedom, etc., it's just not going to work. So I just wanted to raise that point, because ultimately, I think we should sort of like be thinking a bit outside the box and finding common ground in doing so. Apologies for hijacking the question. I just wanted sort of, No,
it's fine. For this reason, we want to have open discussion. This is what I announced from the very beginning. Yeah, thank you. I just will reflect to this because we live, before I give you the floor also, Mauro, I want just to say that we live in a world where most of the countries are authoritarian. And financial freedom, while it's like obvious something for European countries, for US, Canada. But actually, for most of the countries, this is an issue. Because, for example, why we cannot use crypto asset services providers in, for example, Central Asian countries? Because after protests in Uzbekistan last year, hundreds of people were arrested just because they were fundraising through crypto asset services providers. I'm not going to name and blame, but people were disappearing, people were tortured, some of them were killed, some were sentenced for many years. And this is the result what's happened when your banking data or crypto asset services data is actually shared with dictators. In Kazakhstan, for example, it takes 3 to 5 minutes to block account of activists who is actually posting it on Facebook to fundraise some kind of euros, up to 100 euros, to support families of political prisoners. This is the reality where people live in. And in this situation, we count on support such people like actually Senator Barba, because they understand it. Senator Barba was going to Kazakhstan, helping us to release hundreds of political prisoners across the region. So, and we talk, when we as human rights defenders together with Bitcoiners like Obin Voso going to the meeting with regulators, we actually present these cases. We have like global approach from people from Palestine, African countries, Central Asian countries, Russia, Belarus. I'm from originally like Ukraine, but Poland is attacking me together with other countries because we're exposing the human rights violation. And then this is what I want you to take into account. And we say we have no other tools. Some of us, like me and Bota sitting here, human rights defender from Kazakhstan, our banking data was weaponized being in Europe. So it's not abstract. It's happening right now. And UN Convention doesn't give the floor how to defend us. There is no remedy. And this is when the moment we ask such people like Mauro Barba and many other members of European Parliament, please, we need to have remedies. And we achieve it. Even coming anti-money laundering regulation, we would have bank of last resort, we're going to have remedies. But it's not enough because peer-to-peer transaction, anyways, unfortunately, in a communique of G7 countries, assume a threat to financial and security integrity. And this is the reason why I want to bring this topic here into community. This is the reason why I'm asking you, help me to build this, actually, our defense. So, floor is yours also. Introduce yourself and just share it. Yeah.
I'm Enza. I'm actually now individual investor. I manage my own family wealth. Previously, I have been working for international organizations on social and infrastructure projects. And I actually, while living in the UAE currently, in Dubai, I find it's very hard obtaining, let's say, a bank account from EU or other Western countries if I'm living in Dubai because they think we are only doing money laundering. And currently they put Dubai on gray zone, on gray list, although Dubai is fulfilling 36 recommendations by FATCA, while US is only fulfilling 6. And I found, let's say, with Relay, yes, with Relay an issue, and I assume it's only because of my location. I can download the app, but I cannot buy a Bitcoin, and I assume it's related to my place of residence.
Could be. So
and
where
I cannot even, I follow your instructions, first fund it with the minimum, like I think 50 Swiss franc or 100, and I was not able at all to use my local credit card to buy Bitcoin through Relay at all. And second, I wanted to address, do you think that we Bitcoiners are not talking enough to politicians because we are being, we are just like too narrow-minded, thinking like, okay, I want to stay out of politics, but actually if you don't talk to them, how are they going to even understand what Bitcoin is? And we do need to educate them in order to, let's say, remove this bias about Bitcoin as a revolutionary monetary asset or as a digital gold. And I find that, especially living now in Dubai, having account, investment account abroad in the EU, they are like constantly starting to investigate on the origin of my assets. constantly, and I had an issue. For example, even though I did transfer my assets to the EU investment company, and I had to prove like the last 10 years of my life, how did I obtain? Luckily, I had some like statements that I saved, and otherwise they actually decided, let's say, to freeze my account, and they told me you have to either liquidate until we actually get enough proof that satisfies their criteria. And it seems every single time I was talking to a different person who was working on this type of compliance. And then I really wanted to clear it up, because there is nothing to hide. But these people actually were like pushing me to, let's say, prove my 10 years of investment. And that would be it.
So basically, you have no reply from compliance, right? This is like,
I did, because I cleared it up, because I luckily saved some of the, let's say, my statements that I had from source of income, and
But
I
does
had
it
to
help
actually
at the
write
end
to
of
them
the-
the whole letter explaining and provide some sort of proof so that they can see the source of funds. And, and they finally actually did unblock my account, and I was able to use it, but then I decided to close it. But then later, I think there is maybe some prejudice against the region or the country, because later now they introduced that every single time I deposit money, it's not just for me, but everybody using, let's say, that a financial institution has to prove source of funds.
Yes, this is actually what's normally happening. Give me a bit of opportunity, so I give the floor also to Julian and to Mauro also to intervene, please.
Thank you so much for pointing this out. This is actually a very important. I think your two questions are like your issue with Relay and your question whether Bitcoiners should engage more with politics. I think relate very well, because that's what we see on a daily basis. People who are using our kind of retail app, like I think you were trying, or also people with Benjamin, for example, who sits here in the office in the audience. He's our head of Relay Private, and we have OTC deals with big amount of money. Both have the same issue, that a lot of traditional financial institutions like banks or the regulators themselves, which basically are on the same level, are really not trusting anything that relates to Bitcoin or crypto, and they basically are blacklisting them. A lot of credit card providers and networks are blacklisting. For example, Amex, they don't work at all with they will not send any cent to any Bitcoin or crypto related company like ours. So we have a lot of these problems. I'm sorry that this happened to you.
This was a Visa card used by HSBC.
Yeah, also many banks, many credit card providers, issuers as well. So not only Amex, but
I know, but this is something that is not related to like Amex. This is HSBC Visa credit card, and I use that same Visa to buy crypto like Bitcoin through other. CX.
Yes, because it's recorded, so.
Yeah. We would need to look into that case, but in general that happens a lot, and I think it relates to the topic that you mentioned before, that we are like, as a industry, Bitcoin and crypto are treated very differently to anything else out there, and we are treated like as an outside industry that is unregulated, that is not safe, that is dangerous, and that need to be blocked and censored and everything. So we actually, in order for people, for example, with Relay Private to buy 100K worth of Bitcoin, we have to do so much more in terms of due diligence and legal onboarding, compliance, etc., than, for example, if one wants to buy 100K worth of gold with a bank. And so this different regulation of different asset classes is really not fair. It's not good. And I think how we can solve that is through us Bitcoiners engaging more with politicians, educating them more, lobbying for our industry, and really make sure that they understand that actually it's not any different than buying Bitcoin is not different than buying and holding gold. It's the same thing. It's an instrument to store value and transfer value in just a little bit more private and peer-to-peer way, and non-custodial way, right? We need to. It's like they would say, okay, holding and transferring gold should be illegal. Like, why? And then maybe there's a lot of positive things that we can point out to them. That hey, if you engage with the industry more and help us make the industry, yes, more compliant, but also just more liberal and accessible to a lot of people, then you, as a politician, as a government, can attract a lot of business, actually, and a lot of businesses and employees and taxpayers, etc., to your region. That's what, for example, Dubai is trying to do. And with that, maybe we can help them understand how they can do more of that and be successful, like, for example, El Salvador or Madeira or all these hotspots that are from a top-down perspective, like driven from politicians, are doing that in a successful way. And I think they should be role models, and based on them, also other governments and the banking system will understand. And so we will have, hopefully, in the future, less problems that you ran into now.
Yeah. Senator Barba, do you want to comment something?
Yes, I would like to use myself like a caveat with you and with Julian. Because like a politician, I think I should be neutral by technology, but not neutral by the goal we would like to reach. You said that politicians sometimes don't understand some aspect. I don't, and you mentioned the environmental one, for instance. So I would like to talk with you about this, to try to understand how we can have our dialogue. Because I'm also president of a big association of Italian companies that work in sustainability field. We are not environmental fanatic, but we are worried about sustainability. So we know very well the problem of emission. I'm a little bit worried about the energy that we need for the coin, but I'm not totally worried about this. So I think that if someone attack a cryptocurrency for the power consumption, this is not an argument. It is a question, an issue, but everything, every human activity consume electricity, consume power. This is not the problem. The problem is which are benefits. Okay, so I think you should talk about benefit. And for instance, I don't think that the answer of this community should be about gas flaring and green neutrality. I think this is not another argument, in my opinion. If you remain on this discussion, nobody can understand, in my opinion, okay? So I think we have to talk about benefit, even if we know that there are some problem, some energy consumption, like every human activity, okay? So this is for instance, but I don't know, maybe someone of you doesn't agree in this conversation.
Yeah, please introduce yourself and be please precise. I mean,
yeah,
like.
I will be very precise.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for this speech. I'm Evgeny. I'm from Ukraine. I'm a student from Zurich. The key point: how do we do the compliance service QIC? So it's open source already in Switzerland. It calls ZECO list. So according to ZECO list, you can find everyone. So it's already solved. Human rights. So my vision is it's a system behind, not about the politic. It's about the fundamental project, because human rights are already written. First is I believe of a destiny. Yes. First is trust. Once we find something that we have trust, and we will implement our society, because bank system was built on an old school people. It's old school generation. But I'm like Joe Cocker said, yeah, every generation has its way. So I mean, our generation is kind of digital one, and if we choose a digital way, digitalization, so we must refuse from fiat money, because fiat money causes a lot of problems right now because they are printed. And the button system behind, that's the key point. And the method, how do we use to implement these two systems? And also, how can we change this? It's about the vision and about the mentality and what people are thinking about the crypto. Bitcoin is based on electricity, but every single system based in electricity nowadays. I mean, because it is about the internet system. Yeah, so that's it, I guess, yeah.
Thank you. It was a little bit repetition of what already was said, but try to be more actually creative. Please, floor is yours. Remember to introduce yourself. Yeah. At the end of our room, yeah.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Lucas from Switzerland, and I'd just like to point out we already have Bitcoiners within the regulator. We have Bitcoiners at FINMA. And now those Bitcoiners are actually lawyers that got orange-pilled years ago when they were still students. So I think that's what we should do. We should orange-pill young lawyers. I mean, if you look at who works at the regulators, it's all lawyers. Who is politicians, mostly also lawyers, unfortunately. So if you get them early, it will be better in a few years from now. Thank you.
This is one option. Yeah. Who else? Yeah, please here. Yeah.
Mike Peterson with the Bitcoin Beach Project. I think it's important for them to realize that the damage being done to the poor and the most vulnerable members of society by the current AML KYC policies. These are why we still have billions of people in the world that are unbanked. It has nothing to do with the bankability of these people other than it's not economic to bank them. And so if we're going to require policies that make these people not worth banking, they will never be included and we'll never get the full potential out of them. So I think it has to go back to putting pressure on them to really evaluate the trade-offs of the base AML KYC policies and the damage they're doing to the most vulnerable in the world.
Yeah, thank you. Amazing. More comments from the room? Yeah, please.
Hello. Yep. Sorry for double dipping, but I think because the common theme is AML, and it seems to me that there is another problem. How many here can actually come up here and explain in detail the crime of money laundering?
Okay, there are at least two people.
Okay.
Cool.
See that.
A lot of people want to describe it.
But the problem is that money laundering tends to be the one crime that prosecutors don't want it to end up in front of a jury, because it tends to be the one crime that is so complex that it's very easy to confuse a jury and you get an acquittal for the accused. And I think the same applies as well to politicians. So we're trying to tell them, okay, Bitcoin should not be subject to, let's say, different treatment under AML laws, worse treatment in a way. But in the first place, they have to understand what AML actually is, what money laundering actually is. Financing terrorism is easier to understand, but we mostly speak about AML. Now, maybe a different track or different tact could be to also focus on getting politicians to understand that the fight against money laundering is failing. I mean, there are no metrics out there to show that AML legislation has curbed money laundering. I think, on the contrary, it's just made it easier to know what to avoid and which boxes to tick when you're, let's say, applying for a new bank account and you have the means. If you have different addresses, for instance, provide the address which is most favorable, and off you go. If you show compliance teams what they want to see, they will give you the green light each and every time. I've tried it. It worked. So, in essence, maybe we can try a different tact, if and where it makes sense. Get politicians to see that the very tools they're advocating for are not working. And I think maybe a parallel can be drawn, maybe I'm mistaken, to the war on drugs as well, where now there's a massive U-turn taking place in some countries, where effectively they're moving now to remove bans on certain drugs, or at the very least, decriminalizing them. I think that's mostly because they were shown that the war on drugs was failing. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a change of heart. So again, just maybe some food for thought, not necessarily a solution, but maybe a bit of a different way to think about things.
Thank you. There is one more question actually from the parliamentarian from Germany. Joanna, please, floor is yours.
Where? Thank you. It's not really a question. It's about politicians and how they think. A lot of us think that politicians are bad or they don't care about human rights and people don't have money and bank accounts. Just think about people, politicians have no idea.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
They don't know. They live in the Western countries. They have all their financial privileges. We have our money. We have our bank accounts. They have no idea how bad it is in other countries. And until we're not reaching out to these politicians and tell them there is a problem if you regulate it, yeah, you defund all these poor peoples. If we don't talk to them, if we don't reach out, they will never know, and they will do exactly that. They will regulate it, and they will make it impossible for human rights organizations to use this kind of technology. So it's so important to reach out to your politicians, to tell them, to enlighten them, to educate them, to get the word out. That's what we try in Germany. I think that's what you try in Italy as well. But we need the help of the Bitcoin community. We can't do it by ourselves, and I know that you're very skeptical about politicians. I understand that. But please reach out to your politicians who is responsible for you, talk to them, tell them that's an issue, go out there and spread the word.
Yeah, of course, Mauro.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally.
Yes. It was.
Okay, I totally agree. When we organize with Lyudmyla and Bota in Italy a press conference in the parliament, of course I try to talk with all my colleagues, but nobody understand about what we wanted to talk. At the end, we were two colleagues in our press conference, but okay, it was an important moment. A week later, the governor of Bank of Italy came to my financial commission, and I asked him about this situation. He didn't know nothing about this situation. The governor of Bank of Italy. Okay, so. This is the problem. And I think that, of course, I understand your point, of course. But at the end, we are talking about freedom of people. We are not talking about money. We are talking about freedom. And under the word freedom, we have security and we have privacy. If you forget the word freedom and you ask people, do you prefer to have less privacy and more security? In that period, they are scared. They say, I prefer to have more security and less privacy. Okay. So we have to look at the word freedom and to explain that in that way, this is a very dangerous situation for the freedom. But to realize this connection is very difficult. We need, that is the reason because you said very many interesting things about environmental, many we can discuss all day. But if we want to have an alliance, and the alliance must be with people, we have to explain that freedom is the real goal.
Yeah, thank you. Amazing. Julian, I want to ask you question. Let's think that it's worst scenario. So G7 introduced announced that peer-to-peer transaction and self-hosted wallets, it's actually a threat for integrity and security. And we as customers cannot find you in Google and App Stores. Do you have plan B? Do you guys have plan B? Can you say us about it, please?
That's why we're here in plan B.
Yeah, but I'm asking, Julian, we start from you. We
Yes,
have 10 minutes.
I think it's there are, of course, always alternatives, but the big problem is that, in terms of how people use apps like Relay, and obviously we are working on mass adoption. All of us, I think, want mass adoption to give this, free, independent money to as many people as possible. And if you look at how people interact with such technologies, such applications, 95% of the people are using either iOS, the App Store on Apple, or Google Android App Store, so Google Play Store. And then maybe out of the rest of 5%, maybe 3% use this other Huawei App Store, and then maybe 2% use other decentralized, more peer-to-peer ways. There are these kind of neutral solutions and alternatives, but to be really honest, no one uses it. So if they would, and Apple is already kind of on a warfare towards banning Bitcoin and crypto-related companies now that are not fully licensed. So for example, we had a lot of problems we were delisted in all EU stores, app stores, from Apple, not from Google. So it was not like from regulators, it was a policy from Apple. And so they can do that very easily. We are fighting to get back country by country. We are back with our 5 biggest countries now, but still in 35 European countries, we're not in the App Store because just Apple just decided to it. And so I agree with you. It's a huge dependency that we as technology providers have on these big, basically monopolistic app stores or providers and tech giants, because they're as powerful or even more powerful than the regulators, and they can regulate even more than the regulators. Unfortunately, I think we are at a point when it comes to accessing technologies that there are just a handful of tech giants how people access technology. It's Google, Apple, and some others, even Facebook, Meta, and that's about it. Unfortunately, I don't really see a way around this. Obviously, you can provide a PWA, so web app, or you can use these decentralized app store alternatives, but then we will lose out on 95% of the people, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I hope you would be actually open to discuss this issue with regulators, because we explained why we need to have self-hosted wallets and this kind of services in front of regulators, the same, and legislators, the same, like actually Senator Del Barba. Who else have ideas? What kind of plan B we're going to have if self-hosted wallets are going to be banned from app stores?
Disobey.
So,
it's an idea.
Yeah, you want? Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure you can ban self-hosted wallets.
If it's going to be recognized as a threat to security and integrity, and according to anti-money laundering regulation, basically, all applications, they would say, okay, you have to, like different apps or some communities which associated with terrorist group or money launderers, they basically threw out from platform, right?
Yeah, I think there's quite a number of privacy tools available. I mean, you have websites like privacytools.io where you can figure them out. You have lots of real peer-to-peer applications as well where you can trade Bitcoin with people. And I come from Eastern Europe as well, originally. I'm old enough to have experienced as well the previous regime. And I know that there was parallel societies happening before as well, and peer-to-peer was happening, right? There was parallel currencies existing at the time as well. So I'm not afraid that even if it gets banned, people will find a way how to do peer-to-peer transactions, because that's what we have done for the last 5,000 years at least. So we will find a way. You can't block that.
Okay, thank you. Bota? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Realistic point of view.
Yeah. To second that, I think Bitcoin, real Bitcoin, actual Bitcoin, is peer-to-peer, non-custodial. Otherwise, you're buying paper, IOUs, and there's going to be an attempt to fracture Bitcoin. There's going to be whitelisted Bitcoin, which is not Bitcoin. It's going to be paper. It's going to be from whitelisted exchange to another exchange. The supply is going to be inflated to more than 21 million, just like FTX did and any big custodial exchange does. They don't have the Bitcoin they sell to you. And if you want to have real Bitcoin, the actual Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin is deemed to become black market money, at least temporarily, until we win. But they are going to try so hard that it's going to be... I'm prepared. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be black market money for at least an amount of time in some jurisdictions. if you want to have real Bitcoin. And so you're going to be hiding to pay peer-to-peer with real Bitcoin.
Thank you. We want actually to be its legal tool, like, you know, payment tool. So
There's
maybe
no
just
incentive to do so.
Yeah. So please, Bota, and then yeah.
Just to speak about, speak from our experience, and I'm as Lyudmyla, part of Build True Change Coalition, and this is a really big problem that that we don't really see many developers really at the places of decision taking. I'm again talking that we need to speak with the politicians. I'll give you an example. There was a discussion of the, it's now 6th package on AML that was adopted by European Union. And we really, like I remember one of the drafts is actually was banning the
self-hosted wallets.
Yeah, they were called unhosted wallets. Yes. They were called their unhosted wallets. It's like some, you know, there's no host, a normal host at least, right? And so they were seriously considering banning it. And of course, we tried to speak as many MPs as possible, MMPs, and at the same time, we had a meeting. We managed to reach the kind of the czar of AML at the European Commission. And we came with a group of activists, and they were very skeptical about us. And we came and we said that, okay, you guys trying to fight against money launderers and terrorism finances, but have you ever met a real money launderer and terrorist or extremist? And they're kind of like very bit uncomfortable, like, not really, like the criminals, it's not part of the world. And we said, like, I'm Bota Mali, I'm a money launderer and extremist. Lyudmyla Kozlvska, she's threat to national security and money launderer. We had Fadi with us from Palestine, who was a terrorist and money launderer, and we had Anna from Navalny Foundation, who was a terrorist and money launderer. And so, like, a wonderful group of people like that. And when we started telling them our stories, they were, like, really shocked. Of course, we were called unintended consequences. We were called
market
failures, externalities, etc., etc.
False positives. This is my favorite one.
But the problem is that there was nobody from unhosted wallet community who would be with us and explain the technology to those people.
Yes.
And this is extremely, extremely important, because it's the same as, you know, the general myth of Bitcoins, but you really need to explain what are peer-to-peer transactions, how they're used, and
why it's beneficial.
Kind of explanation why, what is the privacy issue we have at hand, and why it's so important for the world in general. And one important thing, it's very important to explain to them that they're not going to ban it in the end of the day, but they're pushing all these communities into gray area.
Yeah.
So we creating a parallel economy, parallel life, which is way worse than you know, peer-to-peer transaction existing in the legitimate space. So anyone who wants to speak on this subject, please join us.
Yes.
Please like find us. We can do meetings with the politicians through Zoom or actual meetings, depending where you are. But it's very important for us to get some.
Yeah, and doing joint submissions, so reflect to
engagement
the
from the community. Yeah.
So, for example, now it's ongoing submission in also European Commission, Bundestag, different other parliaments. So it's a process where you actually can participate and deliver your recommendations. Don't think that it's going to be absolutely ignored. If it's ignored, then we have argument as activists saying we actually warned you. You see, it's written. Your testimony, our testimony were here, but you didn't react as regulator and legislative. So this is something we can change and we should change. Do you want to have like one interaction from yourself? Because we have like 2 minutes and yeah.
Yeah, my last minute maybe. I want to reflect on these two things. I'm really opposed to creating this black market for Bitcoin and another kind of white fiat system. No, I think if we want to make it, if we want to have mass adoption, we need to convince the politicians that Bitcoin is part of the white system. Okay,
exactly.
We're part of the good ones.
Yeah, we need to have it legitimate.
And it is important that people have this peer-to-peer opportunity, and it helps for prosperity for everyone. And how to do this, I would offer as kind of a food of thought, is that maybe I would, if I want to convince someone, I want to think about what does this person want and how can I give it to him. What does every politician want? Vote.
I don't answer because I answered before, but I only want to end to say you that human rights activist point of view could be the right point of view to focus this problem. This morning at the lunchtime, I wrote in my agenda the title of a conference I would aim to organize maybe in spring. In Italian, now I translate you in English. The title would be Anti-Money Laundering Law Against Human Rights Activists. To a double point, side effect or fatal error? Because that is the question. Maybe from the point of view of the governor, is a side effect. They don't know, they don't see. But maybe could be a fatal error, because maybe the system is too rigid, too I'm going towards your point of view, but not so hard, not so hard.
But you heard, you see,
because we are recorded. Okay, I can say what you said. So I leave you this title like the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for participating.